and welcome to another episode of H. Paul Models. This being the third in a series of a diorama build of Dogfight Double, the Wildcat, versus the Zero, all of which will be based in an 8x10 bargain boot fair picture frame. 50p, what a bargain. So, using resin and other stuff I've got on the cheap, yes, I'm going to finish off this project. So, as I always say, and I know you're waiting for me to say, let's go! So, here's the frame, the two planes. So, I've already pre-marked the wood where I want the planes to lay. With the smoke, that rod's broken, I don't know how. But anyway, yeah, it makes it more flexible, I suppose. So with the smoke and the Wildcat, I've marked the bore where I want it. So the next job is to seal the frame. Poundland all-purpose filler. It's £1. Not particularly good at filling holes in walls, but very good for modelling dioramas. This is actually dried out somewhat. So, it's not a disaster. I'll wet it with some water. I've got this wooden spoon thing from a pub dinner I had once, and I'll just mash it in now, soften it all up as best we can. So yeah, this is to seal the frame so the resin doesn't leak out. So yeah, as you can see, that's nicely usable now. So using the same stirrer, I'm just going to cast that into the sides there. I haven't masked the sides because I'm going to paint them sandy colour or blue, depending on where it all ends up. Now, this is a very mucky job. So if you've got to, you're wearing your, it's not a job you want to wear your Sunday best for. Let's put it that way. Just use my finger like you would do when you're tiling the bathroom. And just push it in between the two sections. Oh my goodness, I hear you say. What a right royal mess. At the moment, I agree. But, with another Poundland product, this fan brush, I will wet the plaster, clearing it off all the sides, just to give it as smooth as finish as possible. And then all this stuff I want to spread over as much as I can, because it gives a very, very nice base to paint onto. The paint will cling to it better than anything else. So I've done the filler, covered all the sides in so no resin will leak out. I've also given it a whitewash with the filler, very thin down. That'll act as an undercoat for when I use my airbrush. I've touched the frame up with 33, home rule 33. When that's dry, I shall varnish it, mask it with some Tamiya, and then using my airbrush and home rule, whatever colour it was for sand, paint all that sandy coloured. Then I shall start making the diorama, setting the planes in, that sort of thing. This hole is for the cables, for the Zero. And this hole is for the screw, which I'm going to use to hold the Zero in place. That's it, I don't need more than that. I'm going to use a very small screw to hold the Zero in place, and the last thing I need is a leak with the resin. Now there we go, we're through. Find the hole I've already pre-drilled and then drill back into the Zero for the screw. Now what it would do is, that's it, go through, mark the plane and lift it. See, there it is there. just going to mark that. I'm not going to go too far into it. Now to drill the hole for the Wildcat. Before we do this, quick slurp of the mandatory cup of tea. Handsome. Now this, Common Garden Builder's Sand. This is going to be our seabed. Now I could paint that plaster, but I don't know, I just don't think it looks right. So I'm going to use sand. Get rid of all these bits that are there. There's a stone there, it's coming out. Right, hope it's not a cat turd. So yeah, it's I've done this before on other diorama, and it comes out like absolute concrete. It's really, really good. So I reckon there's another bit there, it's got to come out. I don't like these lumps. They do crush down, but sometimes they're a bit hard, so just, that's it, give that a good stir up. Right, PVA glue, standard Hobbycraft PVA glue. If I can, I'll take the lid off, and I'm going to glue that in there. There we go. I really mix the two. So we're just going to put that onto the board in various places. I love this. It's like I'm 5 again in playgroup. So yes, just spread that out onto the board, into lumps. I know, I may have a beard, I may be 52, but I'm still a big kid. So sand is done. Now, on a seabed, I've certainly noticed that the sand will form with the way that the tide's going. So in order to do this, I'll get my sacrificial brush, bit of water, not too much. I just want to spread that on there, just so it weakens the PVA just a little bit, and then I can form it into like wave shapes. Where the plane would come to rest. I think it would come in that way and plop down. So I'm going to go, yeah, I'm going to have to do it that thicky way, like that. And then as the plane came in, it would get thinner and thinner, like that, I think. I'm going to make that a bit thicker there. Just like that, so it's got a scar in the sand for when the Zero came in. And then I'm going to need a big of a lump there for where the wing would come to rest. I think that'll do it. Now we've got sand, big bank of it coming up where the aeroplane went in. Happy with that. Mod Podge gloss. Sand's going to be wet, I want it to shine. So I'll open that up. Give that a bit of a squidge down like that. I mentioned Mod Podge earlier, so I want it to be a bit, that's it. Off camera I've been completing the base, so the sand has dried like concrete, as I thought it would. I've added some Humbrol sand with my airbrush around the outside, and then used weathering powder to blend the two in. And I've also used weathering and the Mod Podge gloss glue to give like a churned effect on the seabed to where the Zero is going to be. So there's a pile of sand, discoloured, oil, petrol, whatever would be in the plane. So it's like a witness mask to the crash. So next thing to do is to fit the Zero to the diorama. So I'm hoping the Mod Podge will also, I think that's through now. Yep, they're both through. Right, okay, so pull the wires through for the LEDs. And we get our little screw and start that off. Hopefully it will go in, he says, through gritted teeth. Oh, I can feel that bite in the wing now. Hopefully that's got it. Yes, we have success. Right. Yes. Woohoo! So, I'm going to pin that to there with a clip. If I can find my clips, there they are. The idea being I don't want any of that in the resin when I pour it. What I'm going to do, I'm going to put some Mod Podge around that to seal that wing in, just so it can glue steady like that. So there you go. Put that back in my glue drawer. Find a sacrificial brush and just tease it onto the wing and onto the sand, so that'll give that time to go off. We hope. I'll give it time to go off, and the Zero will stay exactly where I want it for when I pour the resin. Excellent. Very, very pleased with that. In the board, and I've done the wiring for the lights off camera. There's a little battery pack there just to turn it on. There we go, there's the lights on. I really am very pleased with that effect. So I shall be adding some little bits of black paint here and there, 33, bit of grey to give it a thing, but I'm going to cast the resin first, tissue it over, and then do that afterwards. I've got to put the Wildcat in there, but that's after the resin pour. Zero's got to go in first because the resin's got to be above the wing. But for now, what I'm going to do next is add some seaweed. It's good stuff, this. I'm going to put some seaweed in there in this corner because I'm going to pour the resin in that way. I don't want to do it anywhere near here because of the Zero, so I'll pour it in that way. So to give it a little bit of character here and there, just turn the lights off for a moment. I'm going to give it some seaweed. So we need some more of that Mod Podge gloss. Not gloss, matte. There we go. We take a bit of it, bit of this foliage stuff. Be good to put my glasses on first, see what I'm doing. That's better. So we get some seaweed stuff, and I'm just going to lay it on the board like that. Mod Podge, and just apply it over the seaweed. And using a cotton bud and a pair of tweezers, just push it into the sand and make sure that it's stuck. There we go. Just work it in to the sand. The Mod Podge will dry clear and non-shiny because it's matte, so it's brilliant for this. I would use PVA, but I just think Mod Podge would be better for this application. Here we go, that's got that bit held down. So a little bit more, I think a little bit over there in the corner there. wouldn't be amiss. Get the wood shapes out, I don't want them in there, that's it. A little bit more of this. So it's just to represent, I suppose, seaweed and stuff you get in the sea. It's just a bit of colour really, more than anything else. To draw away from what is basically a blank sand canvas. A bit of interest to look at. I think it sort of demonstrates I've tried to be a bit. I'll put some effort in. So I'm going to get some sand weathering. Unfortunately it did make a bit of a mess, so some sand weathering, flat brush, and just cover that up. I'll try and blend it in a little bit. Not a bad job if I say so myself. There's always a way out of everything. Nothing's a disaster until you make it into one. That's my motto anyway. So let's just now put a little bit on this wing, because obviously it's dug through the sand, and if I can make that into a little bit more, there we go. And I'll put a little bit on that weed as well, seaweed, just to give it a bit of a bit on here. There we go, just to cover up the use of the Mod Podge a bit more. I think that's not too bad actually. If I say so myself, that is not a bad effect. Quite happy with that. There we go. I'm also going to do, once the resin is cast, I'm going to sprinkle sand over that particular point, so as it sinks it goes off. And it, now for these bits of seaweed I'm going to get some actual sand. If I can get that out. Oh dear, you can get stuck when you want it. Some actual sand, and just sprinkle it over. And hopefully the Mod Podge will grab it, and it will look pretty cool. There we go, some actual sand in the mix as well. Give it a bit more realism. Time to mix the resin. So most modelers will know this, I don't know, but A, which is the epoxy resin, and B is the hardener. It says in instructions to measure equal amounts, so I've got two old cat treat pots which I have marked at equal distance from the base. I'm not using a measuring jug because this will completely ruin these containers, so I'm going to pour and then use a bigger party mix box from Halloween to pour the two contents into there, that be an equal measure, and then I'm going to stir and dye it with a little bit of blue acrylic paint to give it a seawatery colour. So I shall pour and then we'll go to the mixing. Two pots, A and B, ready to go. So I'm going to take a gamble here. Looking at these two, I reckon that'll all fit in one pot. It's a shall I, shan't I moment, isn't it? I think I'm going to go shan't. I'm so boring, I know. So to dye the resin, I've got this blue acrylic paint. I'm taking the smallest amount out, and I will mix that with the acrylic, and that's got to be stirred in. I don't want it too dark a blue. It's a proper mucky job, this. The resin mix is ready, and diorama is on the desk, or model bench, or whatever I call it. So very, very slowly, from one corner, as far away from the zero as possible, I'm going to pour it into the diorama. Watching those sides, I do not want it to breach the sides of the frame. So it's going to have a little bit of that corner there, so I'm just going to give that a bit of a tip up. It's on the masking tape, so it can be removed. It's not a big problem. Oh, I'm getting it everywhere now. Silly bugger. Well, I would say that is full. I'm going to leave that now. That's enough. Done. So, bit of tissue. Dispose of that pot. You can just clear this off of here and get that as level as I can. It's not a problem, this, because I have a set of what I've taped it, so it shouldn't be an issue. It may be, but it shouldn't. So yeah, now I'm going to let that cure. It needs to be left alone for 24 hours. Well, that's, oh crikey, that's the frame full. Done. Right, now before we let it cure, I'm going to take my glove off because I need to work some sand here. So I'm going to get some sand. As I said, where the zero is crashing into the sea, I want to add some extra sand. So take it on the outside of the model in case some sprinkles, and then sprinkle it into the diorama like that. And I'm hoping the sand will sink and some of it will get caught in the mix, and leave that like that. That is more than enough. Just leave it now. It will sink over the next 24 hours and then we'll have a nice sea base. Very pleased with that. Resin has set wonderfully. It's done exceptionally well. So apart from the occasional group of bubbles, which I'm not at that level. It's not a competition model, it's just me having a bit of fun. So yes, I'm very pleased with that. Now I'm going to do some waves, and for that I will use Mod Podge gloss. So open the bottle up, moving the diorama around so I can actually work on it. I'm going to put a little tiny splodge along there, if it'll come out. Come on. Never goes right, does it? Look like fun in the catalogue, I hope someone might say. So there we go. This does dry clear and rather shiny. Get my airbrush on a very low setting, just push that into wave shapes like that. That's it, just push it along. There we go. That's all I've got to do. The next line and the next line and so on. Now this will change as we get close to the zero, but you can now see why I didn't put the Wildcat in, because to do the waves with the Wildcat there would be very, very difficult. So again, with the airbrush, very low pressure, just work the wave shape. There we go. That will dry clear, beautiful, like an ocean wave. Superb. For the water around the wing, I'm going to put, oh, not that, going to put a large splodge on the leading edge of the Zero wing, and with my airbrush work it that way. So the Mod Podge goes up the wing and joins the other way, because I want that to look like it's going through the water. So we're just going to do some to other side. It's always difficult doing resin. You've got something in the resin to work it around, but there's always a way around it. Always a way. Never give up. So I'm going to complete that wave shape there. Didn't go 100% to plan, but never mind, it's not too bad. Got to look a bit random. This is one part of the dioramas that I actually do enjoy. Making a right royal mess of myself. It's very good. I also use, for wave effects, this varnish is called Liquitex. It's very good for watery wave effects. Now the Mod Podge is representing the big waves, but there's always going to be little waves in between. So, decanting some of this into one of my mixing pots, work it across random waves, just like that. For a smaller wave effect. And try and concentrate where there may be bubbles, so to maybe hide them up a little bit. But yeah, again, this is why I didn't put the Wildcat on to the last bit of the diorama, because this would be very difficult to do with the Wildcat there. Very difficult. Humbrol Polyscent again to poly cement. I won't wear it's an aftershave. Yeah, I'm going to just secure the last of this foam around the stand for the Wildcat. A little bit at a time, doesn't need to be absolute tons of it, because this glue is quite aggressive with plastics, I suppose you can say. So just gently push it in on the pole, hold it there for a couple of seconds, and hopefully it will stay where it's put. I do like the Humbrol cement for this, because it does tend to work rather well. There we go, another little bit. There's a bit under there that needs to be hidden up. Oh, crikey. Again, this is just stuffing from a toy I picked up at a boat fair for about 50p, I think, one of those Build-A-Bear type things. Obviously someone's child had it from Blue Water or somewhere similar, and grown up, left home. Now I reuse it to make smoke effects on models. I like to upcycle things, I don't like to leave it as loose. Now I'm leaving the Wildcat loose. I'm not sticking that because I have no doubt in my mind that's going to be knocked sometime in the future, and I really don't want. Not that I'm going to repair it or monitor it or anything like that. It's just it'd be an absolute shame that the model gets broken because it unsticks itself. There's a little tiny bit in the water there I need to cover up. I mean, I really am looking at it with critical eyes now. Perhaps I don't need to go this far, but I kind of want to. Just another dab of that polished cement on the tweezers and then just shove it in there. There we go, that'll hold that in there. Now to secure the plastic rod to the tubing for the Wildcat, I used a fishing line of all things. I just tied it on. Dab of super glue on the tie just to hold it into place. It's sort of, because it's clear and it's easy to do, it's makes for an easier model, I find. There we go. I think that's suitably covered. I've got something under the board, I can feel it. There it is. I think that's about right, actually. Let's have a little flick on the lights. Yeah. So now, next thing is to do is to put some shading on this smoke effect foam so that I can, looks a bit more like it's burning. So just some Humbrol 33, 166, bit of grey, whatever. Just I'm going to wet it, just smear it round the curving edges to make it look a bit more like fire smoke. And then we shall wire it up and call it done. For the smoke effect, as I said, Humbrol 33, bit on a brush, wet it, and just ever so gently just brush it around the smoke a little bit. Doesn't have to cover it all, it's just to make it look like there is something actually burning in there, which I know is LEDs and it's probably a little bit silly, but I like this. I like this effect. It's simple, and when the LEDs come on, it does calm the lighting down a little bit. So yeah, just dab it on the foam, stuffing, whatever it's called, to give it that fireplace effect. Oh, by the way, I've not used a pilot in the Zero. I'm not into doing dead bodies in planes. It's not really, he's already bailed out. Yeah, I'm going to use him in something else, very likely. I've got loads of spare crew that I want to use. The thing I find is they Airfix Lancasters and Wellingtons and B-17s and everything else. Very often, there's no crew. If you want to do one in a flight sort of model and there's no crew, it just looks a bit, I don't know, it's a bit silly. So yeah, I want to cut these figures about, put them in turrets, put them in chairs, like navigator's chair, pilot seat, that sort of thing. Yeah, that's what I want to do. So that would be one of my future projects. I've got two Lancasters built, Dan Buster's one and Mark II, I think it is. So yeah, sometime in the future I shall be using the crew. Right, that's that bit done. I don't overdo it because it will look, I don't know, look overdone, if you know what I mean. But yeah, what I like is just to give it that black effect. So when I turn the light on, see, the rod carries it through and it actually looks like there's smoke and material coming out of the aeroplane, which is what I like. So just a bit of dark grey now from another starter pot. My collection of excessive starter pots I have here. What have we got? What's that, 128? Looks grey. Let's give it a go. Grey's fine. We'll see. Open it up. Oh, cripes. There we go. Oh, perfect. That'll do. It's very nice. again, a little dab, and just let's hit a bit further out. Not too much, just enough. I'm going to go on the underside of Zero, because I dare say I've not touched that side at all, knowing me. Oh crap, this thing's got rather heavy. There we go. On the underside, just a couple of dabs under there. Like a little ball of tension from the 33, I think. Just under there, just to give it a bit more of a blacky tone. Oh, a bit of red wire installation in that, didn't see it. There we go. See, I'm not going to overdo it. I'm just going to, that's enough, definitely enough. Now, without electronics, I think that looks pretty spectacular. From my skill level, it's very spectacular, put it that way. So, yeah, I'm very pleased with it so far. So, just to wire up the battery now for the Wildcat. Check polarity, get the pedal spinning, and then we can call it done. Before I do that, appreciate some of the Mod Podge hasn't quite glued yet. It's still white. It's getting there. It'll take another week or so, but that's not going to move around as I spin the model over to do the wiring. Yeah, and the Liquitex varnish has done exceptionally well as waves. So yeah, I'll do a full round 360 video thing of it, so you can see the reflection on the sand. You might not see it in a moment, but it does look rather good. I'm very pleased. So the finished model, I'm going to say I'm very pleased with this. Yeah, took a bit of work, a few longer videos than I was hoping to, but on the whole, as I'm not a professional modeller or I don't do this for a living, yeah, I'm very pleased with that. So if you enjoy the videos, please like. If you haven't already, please subscribe, and I'll see you on the next H. Paul Models edition. Cheers!